Welcome to Liberate Your People Pleaser. I am Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and you might be a people pleaser if you tend to prioritize other people's wants and needs over your own. If you're the peacemaker, if you're always trying to create harmony with the people that you work with and live with, you probably are also an amazing problem solver. You have great intuition, and you're probably an empath, or at least have great skills of empathy. And the reason why I call this Liberate Your People Pleaser and not Fix Your People Pleaser is there's nothing to fix. There's nothing wrong with you. These are fantastic qualities that you have, really superpowers that you just naturally possess and instinctively use. And what gets problematic about them is when they get turned around on other people all the time and not on yourself. And what do I mean by that? Empathy. You can understand how another person feels, you understand their perspective, or you can put yourself in their shoes. And when you do that, you may be prone to giving up your own feelings, your own position, your own perspective, and you make theirs more important. So you're prioritizing what they feel or think or their position over your own. And that's when things start to go awry for us. And so in this podcast, each episode, we'll talk about different ways that we can power up those great skills that we have and use them for ourselves first, and then give to others out of that fullness, rather than prioritizing everyone else. So it doesn't make us selfish when we stop prioritizing everybody else. What it does is allows us to have the power that we need internally, the confidence and the clarity that we need internally, to then go impact the world in an even more powerful way. So I'm Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and I'm so glad you're with us. Let's liberate your people pleaser. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, because I will tell you, it was a tough one for me, and that is unsolicited advice. Now, when I was knee deep in my people pleasing habits, the ones that don't serve me, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as being helpful, or sort of like another angle on accountability. I'm just holding somebody accountable for something they said. But this has come up for me with clients twice today. And so I thought it was time we do an episode on it. So one was someone actually who emailed me. And so I love that. You guys, you make my day when you email me. And particularly like this, because not only did this person tell me how much they enjoy the podcast, they asked me a question about this topic. And then a little bit later on, as fate would have it, one of my clients today, we ended up getting into the same kind of thing. So I just say that so that you know that what I'm about to cover today is very common when we are in our people-pleasing habits that don't actually serve us anymore. Okay. And that is this topic of unsolicited advice. And here's how it happens. We end up in a relationship with someone. Now, this could be even at work, right? But it could be romantic. It could be somebody in your family. And you can see so clearly what it is that's going on for them. Like they're being defensive because whatever, if it's a relationship, let's say a former spouse used to do this thing to them, and now you've done something similar but different, and they're mad at you, and you can see that they're just being triggered, right, by whatever went on in their first relationship. Or something, even again with a coworker, can be the same way, where you know them well enough to know what triggers them, and you can tell that's what's happening. And so it's very easy to justify wanting to say, hey, this isn't my fault. You're blaming me for something someone else did or whatever. It can feel like it's speaking your truth. It can come across as very much unsolicited advice, right? It's the stop that, don't do that. I want you to feel this way. I want you to, understand this about me. You asked me to remind you that whatever, like in the question I got today, it was about actually getting professional help. So, if your lover says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to, go get a coach or get a therapist or whatever," and then they don't do it, and you're just dying to say, "Hey, you said you were going to do this. You said you were going to get help. You said you were going to get a therapist." So, why do I consider that unsolicited advice? Okay, versus accountability. In many of these dynamics, there is the biggest difference is the energy that's behind them, the motivation behind them, more so than the actual event, because we could very from a very healthy place with our when our people pleasing tendencies are all in our superpower category, instead of our habit that doesn't serve us anymore. I could remind my lover that they mentioned they were gonna find a coach and how is that going? And it would be very much like with the energy I just said that here, right? It's just like very matter of fact because I'm not being triggered by whether or not my lover goes to see a coach or gets into therapy. Because if I am, I need to do something about that for me, okay? And my trigger. So let's unpack this a little bit because it can be difficult to explain. So hang with me. Don't stop the podcast now. Um, it can be hard to describe. So stay with me and I'll do my best to use words that will create the distinction for what I'm talking about. So when it's really all about how you feel about it, the energy behind what you want to say. So when the energy behind something you want to say to someone is like hyped up or hopped up, maybe it's better. It has anxiety, it has stress, it has an obsession kind of behind it or a compulsiveness, like you've just got to say this, right? You've just got to get this out, like you just can't stop thinking about how you know exactly what they need to do, right? Whoever the they is, it doesn't matter who they are. Then that is coming from the people pleasing part of you that doesn't serve you anymore. Because the whole drive behind that obsession and that compulsion and that anxiety is because you're getting into somebody else's business. So we've talked about this before, but in case you haven't heard me mention this concept, I get this from Byron Katie. And she is a great teacher, great enlightened master to me of our time. And so she talks about it in this way. There's three kinds of business: my business, your business, God's business. Okay. So we're going to leave horrible weather in Texas. We're going to leave natural disasters. We're going to leave all kinds of things like that in God's business. We don't have it's not a part of us. I mean, we can't do anything about it. Right. So that's God's business. Then there's your business, the your being anyone who isn't you. Okay. And then there's my business. Okay. So my business is everything I am thinking, saying, doing, feeling, what I'm doing with my body, what my body language is, all the things, but it's only me. Every other person in the world falls into your business, their business. You can personalize this for yourself. So you have your business, that's your personal self, and then everybody else, that's their business. Your coworker, your spouse, your lover, your mother, your father, your sister, your kids, everybody who is not you has their own business. And every time we get involved in someone else's business. We're trying to make them feel a certain way. We're trying to make them not feel a certain way, right? Instead of feeling insecure, we want, like this happens a lot in romantic relationships, right? The partner says something or does something, expresses some sort of insecurity about how they look or their weight or whatever it is, their job, maybe they just got fired, whatever it is. And we want them to feel happier or positive or hopeful, or to know, it's not true. They really are attractive, or they really do, whatever, in a great way, and their boss is an asshole, like whatever it is. We want them to feel differently. So that is not your job to get someone to feel differently. Now, when people pleasing is in our superpower, we of course love to be another person's cheerleader, encourager, all that kind of stuff. But that has a totally different energy, because I'm not trying to make my other person feel a certain way. I'm sharing my experience of them, right? Like, I love your body, or I think you're so awesome at this. I can't even imagine where your boss is coming from, or, whatever it is. I'm just saying the truth, and it's my experience, so it's my business, it's my experience of you. If it's something like you said you would go to therapy and you haven't booked an appointment, then I might say, then the way that would come out would be something like, we talked about this, and I've noticed you haven't done it, and I notice I'm starting to feel anxious about that. Right? I'm back to myself. When we're in our superpowers of being a people pleaser, the only person we're trying to please is ourself. Instead of the distortion of it that gets us in all sorts of trouble that doesn't serve us anymore, where it's all outer focus. People are out there, right? We're trying to get people and circumstances outside of us to be different in one way, shape, or form, so that we will feel better. When my people pleaser qualities are in my superpower, I'm turning all that energy onto me. What do I need to feel better? What might I need to ask you for? How can I take care of myself? How can I love myself? How can I be kinder and gentler with myself? Because we often get off into self-criticism, right? So anytime we're trying to shed the light, get somebody to see something we see, we're in danger of slipping into people pleasing in a way that will not serve us. And the biggest indicator of it is your own feeling state around it. It's whether or not you feel anxiety, it's whether or not you're feeling any sort of like just that obsession, where it keeps going over and over and over in your mind. Oh, I've got to say this. I've got to say this. And you just feel, for me, it's always in my belly, but it's in, it'll be maybe in a different place in your body. But if you tune in, there will be this like frenetic energy around, I've just got to get them to get this, right? To see it the way I see it. Okay. That's how you know. When you have turned all your people pleasing qualities onto yourself, you may be angry. You may be in a place where you frankly can't tolerate something, right? Like sort of if you don't make an appointment with a coach or a therapist soon, I'm out of here. It can be that. But the energy behind it is so much more still, is the best way I can describe it as far as how it feels in your body. It's clear, it knows what it needs, and it's much more still than when we're in that energy that causes us to get into other people's business. So being in other people's business does not mean we keep our mouth shut. It does not mean I don't say, if you don't get into therapy, I'm going to leave, right? It doesn't mean I don't say, if this or that doesn't happen, I'm going to need to look for, another job, or, whatever it is. Like, it could be, I just use those as examples because they're dramatic, right? Most things in life are not as dramatic as leaving a relationship or quitting a job, whatever. They're somewhere, much, much smaller circumstances than that. But whatever it is, large or small, The way you know is that your energy around it is just, even if it's a big deal, the energy is much more clear and calm. When you're spinning in your head and there's a million thoughts and they're going a million miles an hour and you've just got to get them to see it, then you know you're probably in somebody else's business. Okay. Whoever that is that you want to see that, um, you're in their business. You're offering unsolicited advice. And when you think of it from yourself, like as an adult, I'm sure you can think of a million times, if you have parents that are anywhere in the realm of norm, that they give you unsolicited advice, right? Like that's what parents do so often once their kids are adults, right? They tell them all the things they think they should be doing differently or whatever. When a person asks you, what do you think I should do about this? Or what are your thoughts about this? Or how would you handle it? Or any kind of thing like that, then great. Of course, you're going to share that. But when you haven't been asked and you just want to tell, that's the red flag. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. Please let me know in the comments if I have succeeded in making this distinction for you, because of course it's not a formula. It's not black and white. It's not, oh, you know, when you do this, you're in somebody else's business. When you do that, you're not, and there's a spectrum and all that. We can be a little bit, have a little bit of, I don't know if you can have a little bit of obsession, but you know what I mean? A little bit of that frenetic energy. We can have, some calm, some clarity, but not 100%, so life is always in the spectrum of, all these things. It's just the easiest to talk about it in the more dramatic senses, because then we can start to wrap our head around what one thing looks like and another looks like. So think back now at a time where you did something maybe very bold or very big, but you felt very calm about it, and just feel how that feels in your body, and maybe think about what you said and kind of the energy you brought to that conversation. And then another time when it was all drama, right? And maybe it spiked your temper and you mouthed off to somebody, or, whatever, said things you wish you hadn't said, or just were so determined that this person, get what you wanted them to get, and they didn't. And and just the anxiety around that, and how it didn't get you anywhere. Probably 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100 times, when we're in that energy, it doesn't get us anywhere. Even if the person kind of placates us by going along in the short term, we wind up right back there again, because they didn't make any sort of change out of their own desire to change something about themselves. They were just, whatever, trying to make us feel better, trying to get us to shut up, whatever it is. So see if you can feel that for yourself. And, again, let me know in the comments if I haven't clarified that, if it doesn't make sense to you. And always feel free to make my day and send me an email with your question about this topic or any other topic. The podcast episode for next week is also going to be on a listener's question that was sent in. So I love that. Love the questions. It helps me fine tune my conversations each week, so I know that I'm really touching on something that's going to be impactful and meaningful to you. So thank you for joining me. I'm Brenda Florida, and we are going to liberate our people pleasers. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. As I mentioned at the end of this episode, I have a new coaching package I call the Power Package. This is for everybody who wants to turn up the light on that dimmer switch and regain your sense of personal power. Anything, we can work on any issue that's taking your power away. It could be your kids, it could be your job, it could be your finances, it could be a relationship, it could be something just from your past that keeps zapping you and you can't seem to get rid of it. We'll work with that very specifically and very intimately, working with me one-on-one. That's why I love one-on-one packages, because it's not a formula. It is diving into what specifically has triggered you and what will specifically for you regain that sense of power. It's already there. It's not outside of you. You already have it. It's just sort of gotten lost or covered up or whatever word you want to use. And we will together uncover it, find it, access it so you can turn up the light on that dimmer switch and live in the power and possibility that is already within you. So I've got the link in the show notes for the power package, so you can check that out. There's 2 versions. You can book a call with me if you're not sure which one's right for you. So just go check all that out and then get in touch with me if you have any questions. And then of course, there's the private Facebook group, Liberate Your People Pleaser. I'll have the link to that in the show notes. And you can always ask me a question that you want me to address on Liberate Your People Pleaser, or send me an email. My email is also in the show notes, brenda@brendaflorida.com. And let me know what's helped you in these podcasts, what you're still struggling with. I am here to be your partner on the journey. So thank you for joining me in this episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser.